Hello and welcome to episode 100 of the Pocket Stylist podcast. I am absolutely super excited to be recording the 100th episode. And do you know what I had to do? I had to think about exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, because in 100 episodes, I have had the most amazing guests. We've covered so many different topics. But what made me realize as I was walking the dog this morning was that I have now got so many wonderful listeners, and I am so grateful to everybody who listens every single week, from the countries that you come from and you're situated in, from the ladies that continually tune in every single week. But I had a feeling that, do you know what? It's been quite a long time since I really introduced myself and kind of told you a little bit about my journey, where my passions are, and a little bit more about me, because right at the very beginning, 100 episodes ago, 100 weeks ago, I told the story. But for those of you who are new to the journey of the podcast and maybe have not been in my world that much, I thought it would be really lovely today to just take a bit of a breather from the style and the fashion and everything like that I normally talk about, and tell you a little bit about me, because then you'll get a feeling of who I am, what I do, why I do it, etc., etc. So that's what I'm going to do today. So let me start by introducing myself. I didn't do that at the beginning, did I? So I'm Lisa Talbot. I am an award-winning personal stylist of 17 years now. So where did it all begin? And it's a really interesting kind of story for me. So I'm also a wife to a wonderful husband of 20 years. I'm a mum to 3 gorgeous kids. I've got twins of 19 and an older son as well. So my whole business has been built around my twins, interestingly enough, because they're 19 and I started the business when they were 2. So, but kind of where does my passion come from with style and fashion? And sometimes you have to sit there and think, and it goes right the way back to probably I was about 14, 15 years old. And we used to have this when I lived rural. So I've always lived out in the country. And we had this really small little hairdressers in our village. The one that, only the ladies that could walk to would go. We very rarely didn't drive to it. Anyway, I worked for this amazing lady. And I used to wash the hair every Saturday morning. And, I used to get £6 for that morning. And even then now I look back and I think I used to sit there even at like between about 16 years old, because I'd been there a couple of years. And I used to sit there and think, oh, do you know what? I could run this place. I could do this, I could do that. So I think I probably always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit of, I can do this, this is easy. It's never that easy, but if you think like that, it's a little bit easier. Anyway, with my £6 a week, what I would then do, I'd go home on a Saturday morning and I'd say to my mum or my dad, can you just take me into town? I want to go and have a look around the shops. And some days I would have saved some of that money. Other days I would only have that £6 in my pocket. And I used to love going around the shops, seeing what they had, seeing what styles they had, what colours did they have. And there was a wonderful boutique in my village called Mango. And it was amazing. I built this wonderful relationship up with the lady who owned it. And, I was only 16, 17 years old, but I used to go in, I used to try the clothes on, see how they fit, see what they felt like, what were they made of. And this lady who owned the shop used to always indulge me. And interestingly, I used to then save my money up and then buy one item, and I'd wear that item out in the evening. And I used to think, God, I absolutely love this. I love how it feels. I love how it makes me feel quite confident. And also, they would always be pieces that were a little bit quirky. So I've always had that kind of dramatic personality, style personality, but I've always had the natural too, because it always had to be comfortable. So that's kind of where it originally started from. So I'd save that £6 up to go and then buy these wonderful key pieces that would make me feel good and feel confident. And then, like everybody else, life carries on. And I didn't go into that kind of industry. I went into I think I went into accounts to start with. Very not me, if you could see me with kind of my accounts now. But yes, I went into an accounts department, and I literally worked my way up in a massive telecoms company. And I loved the people. Did I enjoy the work? Probably not as much, but I loved the people. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the teaming. So for me, it was very interesting how, as my career progressed in the telecoms industry, that I went into kind of recruitment and HR, because again, it was all people related. But I never, ever lost that love of fashion. I would still be, the person on a Saturday who would spend all day, literally all day in a shopping centre. And I'd go from one shop to the other. And I'd say to friends, do you want to come with me? And they'd go, no, thanks, Lisa, because they knew I'd be there all day. And do you know, even thinking about it now, I never used to stop for lunch. I wouldn't stop for lunch. I wouldn't stop for a drink. I'd be like, yes, come on, let's go to the shops. Let's have a look round. Invariably, sometimes I never bought anything, but it was just the atmosphere of the shopping centre and the shops, of what they sold and how they built their collections and everything like that. So even talking to you, the memories are flooding back when I used to maybe go to Watford, or I'd go into London, or I'd go, to Reading, or I'd go to a different shopping centre that was miles away. And my mum would used to say, where are you going? And I'd be like, oh, I'm going to a different shopping centre today, because there's different shops, there's different brands, etc., etc. So I've always had this amazing passion for clothes. Anyway, I had worked with this telecoms company for 15 years. And I then became pregnant with my twins. So I already had my older son anyway. I became pregnant with my twins. And I remember, thinking and saying to my mum, I don't want to go back to work. I just don't want to leave these two little people. And she used to say to me, just don't worry about anything, because I was on maternity leave. Don't worry about anything until you need to worry about it. And so she said, enjoy maternity leave. Don't worry about it. Anyway, the situation came up that the company I worked for then, they made redundancies. So I put my hand up and I was like, please, can I go? Because I'd been there a long time. I knew I'd get a little bit of a payout, which enabled me to stay longer with my twins. So that's what I did. I took redundancy from this telecoms company. But then it kind of hits you, doesn't it? It goes, oh God, now what am I going to do? And I knew how and what I was going to do. But then a couple of years later, so my twins were then 2, I came into contact with a lady who was really quite pivotal in being a part of my journey, actually. And I started selling children's clothes through the home, and I loved it. I loved the interaction with the people, with the ladies, with the mums. I used to go out in the evening, so I was still with my kids during the day. But I loved it. I loved the clothes. I loved the selling, all that type of thing. And then this beautiful children's wear brand bought out a ladies' wear collection. And this is the start of my style journey, and as a stylist, because I then thought, great, I then can go and show these clothes to all these mums that I've already made relationships with. I can take it to the gyms. I can do this. I can do that. And I did. But what happened was I didn't feel confident enough to sell it, purely because it was my own opinion. It wasn't knowledgeable advice. And I'm very much one for wanting to give the best advice to the best knowledge. So, which is where the training comes in and all that type of thing. So I remember coming home to my husband once and saying to him, I think I'm going to go and train as, at the time then, an image consultant. And I remember him sitting there saying, okay, if that's what you want to do. Because I said, because do you know what? It will help this business of the selling through the home, because I was one of the top sellers. I had a team, etc. And I said to him, but I think that's what I'm going to do. And he said, well, that's fine. I said, but I need you to lend me the money so I can do it. I remember him looking at me going, okay. But he said to me, do you know what? If it's going to be anybody I lend money to, it will be you, because I know you'll make a success of it. So he did. He lent me about £5,000 at the time. And I went off and I trained as an image consultant. In the same time, I was still selling the clothes through the home. But while I was training as an image consultant, I set up the websites. I planned who I was going to offer free consultations to, because I needed to kind of hone my skill a little bit more from the training. And it literally started to grow from there, to the point 6 months later, I couldn't carry on selling the clothes through the home because I was just so busy. And I loved the styling side of it. I loved the fact that I could make a difference to someone's wardrobe. I could help them feel really good. So this is where it all started. So I trained as an image consultant, which is why the training I have in my color, in my body shape, in everything started. I'm also trained in makeup. However, it's not my expertise, and I would rather, that's why I bring all the makeup artists into my business, because they are brilliant and I am so not. So it kind of started from there. But then a couple of years later, I then thought, do you know what? The image consultancy route is wonderful. It's a little bit too rigid for my personality. I'm a bit more carefree, a bit more, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And for me, the image consultancy is too rigid for my personality. So I chose to go and train further as a personal stylist with the London College of Style. I trained in all aspects of styling, whether it be editorial, whether it be personal, whether it was photo shoot, whatever, I trained in it. And then I used all of that skill set to then continue to build my business. And in the same time, I'm never frightened in asking a question. So I would go to shopping centres and say, you really need to put a personal shopper in here. These are the benefits. This is what I can help you with. And, you know, I remember Westfield Shepherd's Bush, I got knocked back 3 times. But again, I kept going. And in the end, there was a change in the marketing director. And he said to me, I really like this idea. You need to come and talk to me. And I am going back like 10 years now. And it's wonderful to see how all the shopping centres have evolved, and they've embraced the fact that how a personal shopper can really, really enhance the shopping experience for their customers. So I was involved in that kind of almost that initiative with the shopping centres from the very, very beginning. And then I started to write for the radio. Sorry, I started to write for the radio. I didn't, did I? I started to write for magazines. I started to speak on the radio. But everything is to do with style and fashion, and how basically I can make your life easier. I can give you back time. So it was always about that. So the journey I have been on has been unbelievably exciting. You know, I look back now and go, that was 17 years ago, you know, and I continue to work on the radio. I've worked with the TV and the media. I love working with the big corporates because I'm able to share my knowledge and my expertise and really help people, you know, take so much from it. You know, I've written a book, 10 Steps to a Capsule Wardrobe. You know, I look back now and think, wow. And then the podcast came about because of lockdown, because, you know, very much like everybody else in the pandemic, you know, that March the 20th, which I think will be etched onto my brain, was, oh God, what am I going to do? Because at the time, I didn't have a online business at all. I was all face to face, and it was very much that panic. What am I going to do? But this is where the online wardrobe came along, and we did so much during the pandemic and lockdown. But yes, listen, it helped me because I was able to focus and carry on working. But I also was able to help the ladies that were at home. You know, we did challenges, I did lives, we did everything. And you know what? For me, I have an amazing lady who's been in my life, who is a PR lady. And she's been in my life a long, long time. And I don't always work with her, but I watch her. And she said to me one thing in lockdown. She said, I'm going to tell you one piece of advice: just stay visible. And that's what I love doing. I mean, I love being visible. I love the content that we can create. I love sharing knowledge, etc., etc. And she's always still kind of that little voice that stays in my head. And then I jumped on the app Clubhouse, which was an audio networking app. And this is where the podcast came about. And somebody said to me, oh, you love to talk. And I was like, yeah, I do. I love to talk. I am not the best writer. Hence why, if you go onto my website, you will see no blog, because I find it quite hard to sit and write, whereas I find it so much easier to sit and talk. And I can find myself articulating myself far, far better than trying to get what's in my head out of my mouth and onto paper. So the podcast was born, and it was born in, I think we launched it in about June, but it was 100 episodes ago. And during the podcast, I have had the most amazing guests who have shared their styling queries. I've had guests who have shared their knowledge on personal branding. I've had brands come on the podcast who, again, can tell us about where they started and where they're going. And it's the most amazing. I do have the most amazing job. I work with the most amazing women, whether they are female entrepreneurs, women in business, to female leaders, to ladies that, you know, are at home, to ladies that are captains of golf clubs. I do. And, you know, I have the most amazing client base who, you know, keep me going, because my thirst for knowledge is always there. You know, what can I bring? What can I share? How can I help? Who can I really, really make a difference to? And that's where I love the fact that after 17 years, I am still growing, and we're now starting to put different things into the business. So I will always be a personal stylist, but also I love the fact that I have the ability now to mentor other personal stylists and image consultants, because I've kind of been there, seen it and done it. And I've done things very well. And I've also done things incredibly badly that I've learned lessons from. So there's mentorship coming down the tracks. And, you know, mainly I've built the most wonderful relationships with so many other business owners who, again, we all support each other. But it just sometimes even makes me look back to go, oh my God, you've been on a bit of a journey, Lisa. But a lot of where I am now, I couldn't have achieved without other amazing people in my world. And that's, you know, from the lady that taught me how to do ClickFunnels, the lady who taught me how to, you know, create an amazing website. Not that I created it, you know, Steph Honey created it, but the most amazing website, you know, the fact of a lady who taught me how actually having a VA in my business will really help my business. So there's so many things that I have to be incredibly grateful for 17 years in business. So listen, I could go on forever, as you know, but my main aim is to continue doing what I do best, which is working with women, making sure that you have a wardrobe that you absolutely love, you know, one that really fills your heart with joy, one that gives you time to do other things, whether it's going to the gym or, you know, going to see friends or spending time with your family. My job is to give you back the time by making that wardrobe really, really, really easy to navigate. It also gives you the time that I go shopping for you, you know, and do that kind of thing. But also I love working with the corporates where I can make sure and share the fact that, you know, everybody can look amazing and feel amazing. But actually creating a personal brand, again, is super, super beneficial, because those first 7 seconds count. So there's so much, isn't there? But the podcast I absolutely love. Next week, I will be back to what is style. And I think it's about time we kind of revisited the whole what is style, because there is so much noise in my industry of, you know, personal stylists, influencers telling you should do this, telling you have this in your wardrobe. But actually it still boils down to the individual. It boils down to who you are, what you do, how you want to represent yourself, etc. So I'm going to take it right the way back to actually, it was the first episode I think I ever did called What is Style, but I think we'll twist it a little bit to say, you know, how to create your best style. And actually, you know, we have to start with the goal in mind, and then we work back a little bit. So that is a little bit about my journey and how I got to be the personal stylist I am within 17 years. And if anyone's thinking, by the way, I paid my husband back that £5,000 in 6 months of being in business. So yeah, and he's still my greatest supporter. He sometimes pulls me up a little bit and goes, really, why are you doing that? You should be doing this. So I am incredibly lucky to have the most amazing supportive family around me who allow me to do what I do, because sometimes I can be like, oh, I could do this, oh, I can do that, because I have one of those brains, and they make me focus, they support me. And you know what? Everyone sees the fact that I go for a dog walk every morning with my 5-year-old Rottweiler, George. And I love that kind of headspace that I get as well. So yeah, I love being outside. So, you know, many of you know, if you're on my personal Facebook page, that we also have a horse that my daughter competes. And again, it's just that lovely self-care moment that I have, just being around this amazing animal who is just sensational. So I am a bit of an outdoor person too. So I'm often seen in, you know, woolly hat in the winter and a big chunky coat. So yeah, listen, we could talk forever. I can't tell you how much I feel so grateful to everybody who listens to this podcast. I'm always open to ideas. I'm always wanting to, you know, bring in guests. So if there's anything you want me to do, you want me to talk about, then just message me, because I am so open for it. And that's this podcast is your podcast. I can bring you what we want. So yes, so listen, everybody have a super day. I'm off to drink a glass of maybe something bubbly. I'm not the biggest drinker either. But yes, and maybe give myself a toast for the 100th episode. But thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you all again next week. See you later. Bye-bye.